Hello and welcome back to another episode of MLM Horror Stories. My name's Hannah, and this is a series on my channel where we talk about the insane negative impact that the multi-level marketing industry has on the population. You would not believe the number of people who have been harmed by an MLM company or by one of its distributors, and this series on my channel serves as somewhat of a forum to share those experiences, give people an outlet to talk about the horrific things that have happened to them at the hands of an MLM, and reinforce the idea that these are not companies you want to get involved in. Stay as far away as possible, and here's why. XYZ. Hundreds and hundreds of stories and examples of why MLMs are shady. These stories come from voluntary viewer submission, so if you have your own MLM horror story you would like to send in, check out the description box below for instructions on how to send that to me. I've got 5 great stories for you today. Let's get into it. This one says, "Dear Hannah, I love your content so much. Your voice is soothing and I love to listen as I work because it's so calming. I've been a consumer of your content for a couple of years now, but I'm only now able to face the humiliation and share my story. I've had lots of contact with MLMs as I was raised in the LDS church and now live in Utah, so yeah, pretty much everyone I know sells something. Mona V, Shackley, Avon, Mary Kay, Sensi, Amway, Young Living, you name it, I've been asked to sell it. I usually just say that I don't have the money, which is only true because I don't want to spend the money on it and I will never have enough money to sign up to sell stuff. Back in 2014, I was going through a divorce. I was in an abusive marriage and I was working hard to improve myself and heal. When I was finally at a mental place where I was ready to date, I joined Tinder at the recommendation of my sister. We lived in a very small town where there was literally no one to date. I've been a curvy fit lady ever since I'd gone from 350 pounds down to 180 pounds several years before. After finally becoming happy and feeling secure in who I am, my happiness literally glowed. I was radiant and I'd never been more attractive in my entire life up to that point. I was working 90 hours a week selling insurance and taking care of 3 children under the age of 6, but I looked like I had erased an entire decade off my age. So when I created my Tinder profile, I felt beautiful and confident, as you should. I swiped right on this extraordinarily handsome man. Let's call him Steve. I was so impressed with his profile. He was adventurous and fun, loved to eat healthy and work out. He had many pictures of himself with different groups of friends, and I was very attracted to how happy, fit, outgoing, and adventurous he was. I was thrilled when we matched. Steve said hello within about 5 minutes, and I was so excited. I thought I'd finally met a good man that was actually attractive in our little area. Steve asked me if I would like to go on a date to this, quote, super fun event with his friends. We were all going to meet up at this gorgeous popular park about an hour away. We would have breakfast and then do a workout led by him and one of his friends. I'd love it if you came to see me perform, he said. He also promised to bring me breakfast. I got ready for this date and I was so excited. This was my first date in over 7 years. The last man that I had been with, my ex-husband, was horribly abusive. I felt so lucky to have finally met a good prospect, and even my therapist congratulated me on healing the broken parts inside of me to the point that I was able to attract a good man. I'm failing miserably to sufficiently describe my excitement and what a huge deal this date was to me. I drove the hour to the park and followed the instructions to, quote, look for the pavilion with all of the balloons. I found it and there were hundreds of people there, mostly women and mostly women living in larger bodies. I'm also partially blind, and finding one person in a large crowd is extremely difficult and scary for me. I do my best to just accept the situation and go with the flow in situations like this, and if I can't find the person or people that I'm meeting at a location, I just do my own thing and I hope that they eventually find me. I could not find Steve anywhere. There were multiple locations with balloons and very few men in this massive group of hundreds of women. Something is off. Something is amiss here. I was standing on the edge of the group of hundreds of women looking for Steve, standing apart from everyone so that Steve would be able to see me, and I waited. After I'd been standing there for about 20 minutes, I was trying to decide if I should stay or go when I saw a woman walking around and calling for Steve. I approached her and asked if she knew where Steve was because I was also looking for him. She was very irritated and said, "No, I obviously don't. I hope he's okay. We're supposed to be here on a date." Oh no! I was like, what? I'm supposed to be on a date with him too. How did you meet him? Turns out she met him on, you guessed it, Tinder. As we were chatting and trying to figure out what the hell was going on, a man gets up on stage and announces a welcome to everyone. He says he was so happy that all of his dates could make it and that we could all grab our promised breakfast at the picnic tables by the balloons. The breakfast? Shakeology. We were all duped into attending a Beachbody Super Saturday thinking that we were on a date. Steve proceeded to work out on stage and then spoke about all of the Beachbody supplements. I stayed for most of it because I met two of the best friends that I would ever have that day. We jokingly call ourselves Steve's sister wives because we were all dating him at the same time. Steve had obviously used his Tinder profile primarily to trick women into thinking that we were dating and then emotionally manipulating them into joining Beachbody. This event was extremely damaging to me, as well as my two new friends. I realized that he had swiped on me because he thought that I was somebody who should lose weight. Even though I had already lost almost 200 pounds, I still wasn't thin enough for a man like Steve to take me seriously and to see me as an attractive, available woman. Talking to many of the women there that day, most of them were convinced that the date was real for them and that Steve was only pretending with everyone else. That's a level of delusion that I cannot imagine. Imagine you're there in a crowd of hundreds of women and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm his real date. I'm really the one he wants. Like, I can't. Oh my gosh. And also, did Steve not think that all the women were gonna talk? Like, did he not think that this would come out, that he was dating multiple people that he invited to this event? I'm having a hard time understanding what he thought was going to happen, you know? Not the brightest bulb, this Steve. I can't imagine how many women went through even more pain than I did, as I was in a pretty good mental and emotional place to be able to come away from the experience relatively okay. I did see many very sad women crying while walking to their cars. I overheard one woman saying to somebody on the phone, maybe if I lose weight, Steve will want to date me. Maybe he invited me here so that I could learn from him and one day be attractive enough to date him. Wow. Ooh, that's rough. That's really sad. It's been 11 years and I still feel humiliated. I still wonder if I was delusional when I thought that I was attractive. I wonder how unattractive I must have been for him to think that I would be a good target for this tactic. I'm also still sad for all the women duped into a group date in which we were all called fat and pitched gross gourmet milkshakes. Steve had a harem of women who were all competing for his attention, who had joined his team in hopes of one day winning his love. Well over 25 women. So that's my horror story that beats all of the other horror stories I've experienced in the MLM world. Thank you for everything you do and the light you shine on the corners of this shady, abusive MLM world. Give your lovely pets and family a hug from me. I've never heard anything like this. This is insane. Yeah, I just keep going back to like, what did Steve think was gonna happen? This is not a good idea. Steve, take a seat. Who do you think you are, inviting 25 plus different women to be amongst this crowd of other women at this Beachbody event and not have the forward thinking to think, oh, you know, I'm gonna get caught in some of this. These women are smart enough to put the pieces together to understand that I have just set them up. That's a level of confidence and delusion that I can't understand or relate to. It doesn't make sense. And just going back to the very end of your email where you said something really heartbreaking. I wonder how unattractive I must have been for him to think that I would be a good target for this tactic. I would like to reassure you that it sounds like this man was just swiping, okay? This is the same dynamic as cold messaging people. This is a numbers game after all, so the more people you can cold message, the more people you can swipe on, then the better shot you have at one of those people taking you up on your offer. And if his objective is to get people to join his Beachbody team, then he needs the numbers to be on his side. So I kind of want to push back on this idea of like, oh, I was just the target audience of like unattractive women who need to lose weight that he was looking for, because I think it could very well be the possibility that he was swiping like his life depended on it, and whoever happened to match with him is who he extended this invitation to, and that it was nothing personal. But it feels personal, and it's still rude, and it doesn't make it any more okay, and I'm still really sorry that this happened to you and that you were put in that really uncomfortable position. The plus side though, you made some friends out of it, so that's amazing. I love that. Steve's sister wives, or whatever his real name is inserted there, right? So you know what? You dodged Steve, you dodged joining Beachbody, and you got a couple friends out of it. So I would say that it's a net positive, right? There is some emotional damage that does go along with that, but it sounds like you came out relatively unscathed, which I'm happy for. Very entertaining and also extremely unusual story that I have not heard of before, so thank you for taking the time to send it in. This story says, hey Hannah, I've been watching your channel for a while and I love your content. I've always meant to email you this story, but I just haven't gotten around to it before. I'm a millennial woman who was raised in the Mormon church. MLMs are rampant among Mormons, so as you can imagine, I've had several run-ins with MLMs. This instance was especially heinous. Back in 2018, my older sister was diagnosed with stage 2 stomach cancer. Firstly, I'm very sorry that that was a diagnosis that your sister received. I know how detrimental that can be for not only your sister, but also the whole family. It's really stressful. And secondly, I can't help but just immediately feel sick because this is a story about an MLM company, and the moment that anything like cancer is mentioned, I immediately know it can't be good. I already know this is likely going to be a story about someone in an MLM who saw somebody with cancer and saw that with dollar signs in their eyes and went, a perfect opportunity for me to make some money off of this. Like, it's disgusting. We already know that nothing good can come of this. She immediately started chemo and she used the cool cap to protect her hair. The cool cap wraps around the head and circulates freezing water, which reduces blood flow to the scalp. This reduces the amount of drugs from reaching the scalp that cause hair loss. According to my sister, it's extremely painful, but it worked and she had very minimal hair loss. Fast forward about 6 months later, a girl from my church reaches out about Monate, the hair care MLM where they sell their magic super expensive shampoos. Like usual, I don't respond. She tries to message a few more times. I continue to ignore, but she finally gets the hint and stops messaging me. Or so I thought. Great. Coinciding with these messages, my family has received the terrible news that my sister's stomach cancer is back and has spread to other organs and is terminal. I am so sorry. My sister had to go back on chemo and this time made the hard choice to not do the cool cap to protect her hair. Another month or so goes by and a family friend set up a GoFundMe for my sister, and I shared this on my social media. I noticed that later that day, the Monate girl has donated to the GoFundMe. Mind you, it was only like $5. Not to sound ungrateful, but considering what she was about to message me, she probably should have donated more. I received the following message that night. Quote, "Hey, I'm sorry to hear about your sister. I can't imagine what your sister and your family must be going through. I just donated to the GoFundMe. I know you have ignored my previous messages about Monate, but I feel impressed by the spirit to share this opportunity with you again." Really, was it the spirit or are you just greedy? Is it God telling you to do this or are you just preying on people with cancer for your own financial gain? I've heard firsthand accounts from other women going through chemo how Monate products helped reduce the amount of hair they lost. If you were interested, I could recommend some products for your sister and I could place an order, or for a really good deal, if you sign up to sell Monate, you could get a bunch of products at a discount. Let me know if you're interested. I'll be keeping you and your family in my prayers. I could not believe what I was reading. I did not ignore her after this message, and a lot of warranted anger and a lot of misplaced anger was directed at her in my response. I was pretty nasty and I do regret some of what I said to her. We never spoke in church after that and I ended up moving, so I have no idea what she's up to now. I just can't imagine how desperate and brainwashed you must be to see a post about a friend's terminally ill sister and think that this is an appropriate time to shill your shampoo and try and make money. It blows my mind. I think what still irks me most now is her claim that the spirit told her to recruit me to sell shampoo and that she included that she donated. Like I owe her something now since she gave us $5. Thanks for taking the time to read through my email and others' emails. What you do is making a difference. Over the past few years, I've definitely noticed a lot of friends leaving their MLMs and I receive way less messages. Thanks again, Hannah. We are named twins. I think her message to you was astounding and uncalled for, and it makes perfect sense why you would be heated and angry about it and kind of feel the need to retaliate and to share your mind. And I agree with you that the two things that really stand out from her message is number one, that she mentioned, like, I donated to the GoFundMe. Like, thanks for your donation, but I don't owe you anything because you did that, you know? Like, thank you for your generosity. My family really appreciates it, but don't use that kind of as your in to this message of like, I donated, so listen to what I have to say. It's giving selfish. It's giving ulterior motives. And then additionally, this whole like blaming God, blaming the spirit, blaming whoever, like, oh, somebody spoke to me and told me that I should reach out to you. I've said this in other videos too, that I'm personally not religious, but I would assume that God doesn't want you to take advantage of people, to prey on them in a vulnerable time, something as deeply vulnerable as a terminal cancer diagnosis. Do you really believe that some higher power told you to reach out to this family to try and sell them shampoo? Shampoo, of all things! Like, that's the most help you have to offer this family in a time of need, is your shampoo from an MLM company? $5 in an MLM pitch? Like, get out of here. Who do you think you are? I'm sorry, I'm mad. It's just rude. It is not a kind human thing to do, to look at other people who are struggling and to wonder how you can benefit from it. But that's where the nuance comes in, is that I bet in that moment she didn't think she was being rude or that she was preying on somebody or like taking advantage of someone. She very well genuinely may have believed in her heart of hearts that she had a solution to something that your family was struggling with. Cancer, chemo, hair loss. Oh, well, I have shampoo that helps with hair loss. And that really speaks to the brainwashing that's going on to keep these people in these MLMs. You're made to believe that you have something good to offer the world and that you're like a steward of this company and you're going to go out there and you're going to introduce all of these people to your amazing product and you're going to change lives. That is a narrative that is drilled into your head in these high control groups of MLM companies. So in my opinion, I bet that in this moment, she didn't realize what she was doing was wrong. This is typically something that you look back on years down the line and be like, remember that time I was in an MLM? Remember that time that I thought it was okay to reach out to that girl about her sister with cancer and try and sell her shampoo? Like, dang, that was really embarrassing of me. And I do have faith that a lot of people who come out of the MLM bubble and they're on the other side of it, that they do have some level of reflection and understanding that what they were doing at the time was wrong, but it still doesn't make it okay and it still doesn't lessen the impact in the moment, right? We don't know if she's still in the company. We don't know if she's finally come to that realization that she was in the wrong. So I will apologize on her behalf. I'm sorry that this happened to you. I can only imagine how infuriating and hurtful that would be to receive that kind of message. And my heart goes out to you and your family as you navigate this cancer diagnosis. It's really, really difficult to have someone in the family be terminally ill. And I know exactly what that feels like. And it's awful for everyone involved. I hope that your family is doing okay with navigating something like this. And I also appreciate you writing in this story in this difficult time, because it's stories like these that speak to the brainwashing, the motives behind the things people in MLMs do, calling out their unacceptable behavior and not normalizing it, being like, this is not okay. It probably feels okay to them because that's what they're taught and trained to do, but to the rest of us, we can so clearly see like this is not acceptable. And I will take every opportunity to reiterate that as many times as possible. So thank you so much for writing in this story and allowing me once again to put this on display and be like, this is not cool. It's not okay to prey on people for your own financial gain, and don't let being involved in an MLM sacrifice your humanity and your morals. This story says, hello Hannah, I love your presentation style, not too angry, not too passive, and I've binged your MLM horror story series and I figured I'd submit a story of my own. I'd like to be kept anonymous and I'll be using fake names to protect privacy. Apologies for the length. My history. Over a decade ago, I was a Cutco/Vector rep for 8 months and wasted 20 plus hours a week working in their office, trying to achieve the dream of financial freedom I was promised. I was homeless at the time and desperate to be financially stable. Needless to say, I did not achieve financial independence through working at Cutco/Vector. During this time, I was couch surfing at a family of friends, the Smiths, who introduced me to doTERRA oils. I love the smell of the peppermint and the orange one. Mrs. Smith had me drink lemon oil in water. I never should have tried it and vehemently do not recommend. Barf, literally. Never ingest essential oils no matter what the person telling you to swears it will do for you. I was having a lot of health issues and Mrs. Smith and her neighbor, Mrs. Doe, told me how great all the oils would be for my health and I could purchase them directly. It was not presented to me as an MLM or a job of any sort. Mrs. Doe just presented me with a random 7-digit number and a web address so that I could purchase them directly. To my now shame, I did purchase through this link once, maybe twice over the past decade and a half for the aromatic use because I'm a sucker for a good peppermint smell. Mrs. Doe, the neighbor, encouraged me to introduce others and point them to her. I never did as I was too involved and failing with Cutco to have any spare time. 2 years later, I finally had a real job at a bank call center and Mrs. Smith was pressuring me to use different oils topically, applied directly to the skin with no carrier oil. This woman seems to have very, very bad advice for using essential oils. Never ingest them, never apply them topically without a carrier oil like coconut oil or something really mild. Specifically during a flu season, she suggested that I use doTERRA's On Guard blend that I bought one time with a peppermint to get free shipping. When I did finally give in to her instructions, I applied a drop to both sides of my neck twice a day for 3 days. It burned like fire and it made my esophagus sore and burn, so I stopped using it. Shortly thereafter, I developed a mono infection that spread to my vocal cords. Not saying that it was the oil's fault, but the timing was odd, plus the fact that the oils have been known to cause mono infections if they are contaminated in the factory. I've never heard that before. I don't have any evidence that that's true, just for legal purposes in this video, okay? All an anecdotal story. After this, I stopped using them topically and just used the peppermint, lavender, and citronella oils to keep bugs at bay. The stash I had purchased lived in a drawer that never got opened and I forgot that I had them. Last year, I found out through your videos that doTERRA was an MLM, which shocked me as I'd never worked for them nor was pressured pressured to sell them. To my 18 to 20-year-old brain, they were just like a virtual Walgreens for smell goods that some people said magically helped medically. But after my experience, I disagreed with the medical help magic. Because of them being an MLM, I wanted my information out of their system. I have not purchased nor used any oils in years. After the infection I referenced, my body has become intolerant against any artificial or strong fragrance. I reached out to doTERRA's member team to get this done. They told me that I could definitely remove my info from their system and they would send me a document to complete. What they sent me was a notice of termination of contract form meant for the wellness advocates to dissolve their relationship with doTERRA. I thought for sure this is the wrong form. I called them to tell them that I never worked for them and I have no contractual agreement with them. And they said that they require a signature on that form to remove my info from their system. When I asked why, they told me something that shocked me to my core. I was a part of someone's downline. I told them that this was impossible as I had never worked for doTERRA nor signed any contract with their company. They said that Mrs. Smith, the lady that had taken me in while I was homeless, was my upline and I just hadn't received any commissions because I hadn't sold anything. I told them that I never intended to sell anything and I was just a customer. They said that Mrs. Smith must have signed the contract on my behalf, but they had no copy of the contract to confirm who signed it or when it was signed. That sounds like really bad record keeping, and you would think that a company this big should have that kind of thing on hand. They also claimed that I had signed their seller contract when I ordered from them, which apparently means that their contract is hidden under the terms and conditions checkbox that you have to check to place an order online. I asked them how placing an order through a link and login that somebody else created for me means that I'm contractually obligated to them, to which they had no answer and told me to just sign the form that I was sent, and they hung up. So what did I do with this information, you might ask? Well, for one thing, I refused to sign the notice of termination of contract, as that would make it appear that I was agreeing to have signed the contract in the first place, which I did not. Since my whole goal was to remove my info from their system, what I did was log into the profile that I hadn't used in ages, and then I blanked out everything. Where something was required, I put NA or a bunch of zeros. It's almost satisfying to know that a blank profile is just taking up space in their system. Maybe one day they'll delete the now blank profile that never gets used. Moral of the story, don't trust random oil fanatics to not sign you up so that they get commission off of you for years without you knowing. Hope you enjoyed this story. Have a great day and keep doing what you do so well. This is infuriating, and I hate to say that it's not the first time I've heard of this thing happening, where somebody discovers years down the line that somebody signed them up for an MLM without their consent or knowledge, which is really insane because usually I believe that when you sign up for an MLM, because you're signing on to be an independent contractor for tax purposes, you have to give your social security number when you sign up. And if I remember correctly, there have been other stories on my channel of people who have been like pressured to fill out all this information without knowing fully what it is they're signing up for. I think there was a story where somebody was on the phone with the person that was trying to recruit them and they were like, okay, go to this page, click this button, fill out this information, whatever, to be able to buy the products. And they were like, why do I have to put in my social security number? And they're like, oh, don't worry about that. It's fine. Just keep going. And so they went with it, not knowing like I'm signing myself up for this business opportunity to be in their downline. I'm becoming more than just a customer at this point. And that in itself is deception and it shouldn't be allowed. But this is a whole extra level because how did they sign you up in the first place? I feel like they would need to have a lot of your personal information to even get that far. So I'm confused about how this actually went through. Like, does doTERRA not require your social security number at the time of signing up? Or did she have access to that knowing that she lived with you? Did she find that somewhere and put it in herself? Definitely some shady things going on here that I don't love the vibes of, but you attach the form that doTERRA sent you saying that you had to sign to get out of their system, and there were a couple notable things about that I wanted to show here. First, I'll put the whole thing on the screen here for a second if you want to pause and zoom in and read all of this language, but specifically one of the very last paragraphs on here, this is crazy. When you sign this form, you say, I hereby waive, release, and hold harmless doTERRA and other wellness advocates from any claims, complaints, actions, causes of actions, liabilities, or other claims I may now or in the future have against them. So basically, by signing this form, by terminating your membership with doTERRA, you give up your right to have any legal claim against them in the future. I don't know if that kind of language is standard in these forms across all different MLM companies because this is the first one I've ever seen, but it's notable that if you quit this company, you give up your right to pursue legal action against them. Well, what if the reason you're quitting has to do with a legal issue? What if you have grounds for a lawsuit against them and you don't want to be a part of them anymore? Well, you can't pursue that if you sign this form and leave the company. I think that's what this is saying. I'm not a professional in legal jargon, so please feel free to correct me and put put me in my place if I'm wrong about that, but that's how I interpreted that. Like, if you sign this document and you're gone forever, you're gone forever. We're never seeing you again. And you can't come back and get us for something in the future that you're upset about. And then the second thing that I wanted to point out is the very bottom portion of this form where they want you to check your reason for termination. And the options are financial restrictions, product pricing, shipping and packaging issues, you want to move to a different team, you have too many products, team relationships, confusion with the LRP termination process. I don't know what that is. You want to purchase similar products from a different company and then they make you state which company, like, are you going to Young Living kind of thing? Or if other, please explain. And what comes to mind about this is like, I would love to get my hands on the data that they receive from this questionnaire. I want to know why people are quitting. I want to see what they're checking, what rationale they're giving, and what percentage of people quitting doTERRA blame financial restrictions, or like, I have too much product on hand, or the products are too expensive. All very valid reasons to want to quit, by the way, but the point being, the company has this information somewhere. Or I don't know, it doesn't seem like they're very good about their record keeping, it seems, but theoretically, everybody who quits doTERRA fills out this form and says why they're leaving, and so they have this data sitting somewhere. They know exactly why people aren't sticking around in their company, and I would bet my life that most people are checking financial restrictions, like, I can't afford this anymore, I'm not making any money, and that means that doTERRA is likely aware that people can't make good money in this business opportunity and that most people quit because they're failing at it, essentially. I hate the word failing because I don't want people who quit MLMs to feel like a failure. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think the correct terminology would be to flip it around and to say the MLM failed you. You didn't do anything wrong. You did what you were supposed to do. You tried to sell the products. You tried to recruit people. You did the best you could. You worked hard, but the system is set up for you to fail. So anyway, I wonder if just somewhere in some doTERRA office or in some software, they have this data of like, most people quit because they're not making any money. I would love to see that, although I never will, but it just came to mind based on this form because I'd never thought about that before. The evidence that you've got a crappy business opportunity is right there in front of you, but they're never gonna let that get out to the public, right? I think it's truly wild that you didn't know that you were signed up for this, and it's unacceptable that you were signed up for this without your permission, considering the time of your life that this happened too, where you were homeless and you were staying with somebody who was supposed to be kind of taking you in and helping you. And in fact, what they did was take advantage of you instead without your knowledge. Just a really awful situation. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. And that says something about the desperation that this Mrs. Smith character was likely feeling to have to lie and deceive and cheat the system to get something out of it to further herself in the doTERRA business opportunity. That right there kind of shows that it's not a great thing to be involved in if that's the measure you have to go to be successful or to make sales or recruit people or whatever it is that she was trying to accomplish by doing that. Thank you for sending in your story and for exposing this wild situation. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I love your videos and hope your family is doing well. I recently found your channel and when I realized you had the horror story series, I knew I had a doozy of a story. Sorry if it's a bit long. This story happened back in 2018. I will change the names for those involved for privacy and I would appreciate it if my name was not said in the video. I was dating a guy for around 6 months, let's call him Joe, who moved in with me pretty quickly. I was his first girlfriend after him being single for around 4 to 5 years, and he was very active on dating apps during that time, so he had a lot of girlfriends that he spoke to from his dating life that, quote, never went anywhere. Big red flag. One of these girls, we'll call her Nina, was somebody he mentioned in passing with little tidbits of information like, oh, Nina said blah blah blah, or I was chatting to Nina the other day, which I didn't really think much of because there were a lot of female friends mentioned by him, so it didn't set off anything in my mind. No big deal. He mentions people I haven't met all the time. As time went on in the relationship, I noticed him becoming withdrawn and shrinking into his phone a bit more. I'm a pretty relaxed person when it comes to privacy, and I don't really like to pry into what people are doing, but the whole thing felt very off. I eventually asked him who he was speaking to all the time, as there was not often a time that he wasn't typing something. He told me it was Nina, and I went on to ask what they could possibly be talking about, and he told me that she was pitching her MLM to him. She was in the company Unique. And he felt like he wanted to find out as much information as he could about it so that he could, quote, talk her out of it. Weird, right? At first, I didn't question that she would speak to him about that, as I looked up her page and she was constantly spamming about Unique and all the classic stuff, so it wasn't out of the realm of possibility. I've always been anti-MLM and very vocal about it, so the idea of talking a hun out of her cult was very odd to me, as I knew it wouldn't be possible. And in my eyes, he was wasting his time. I didn't understand how the relationship with Nina, a girl he supposedly knew briefly from his dating app days, was so crucial to maintain, and why he felt like he needed to save her. Well, my woman's intuition kicked in, and one day I looked at the thread of texts. While Nina did occasionally mention her small business, she also mentioned some other things about what she would like to do with my boyfriend and how she had enjoyed them when they had done them that time a few years ago and were planning to do them again. Ah, okay, I see. I see exactly what's going on here. That woman's intuition. Something is off, and it's clearly more than just talking about Unique and trying to get her out of it. To be clear, since my Facebook is essentially inactive with no posts and my Instagram was private, I have no idea if she knew that we were together when she was sending these messages, as she wouldn't have been able to see the photos of us together. So I don't know how much to blame she is, but regardless, it sucked. I'm pleased to say that that was all I needed to end the relationship, and he left my house pretty quickly. I was devastated to have been so stupid to what was right in front of me, but I managed to get over it with the help of my friends and my work. Fast forward to around 2 months after the breakup, I see the little message request icon on my Facebook. You can probably guess what's coming. Like I said before, I'm not sure how much she knew, and I assumed that he never told Nina that I was his ex, or she simply didn't care, but this hun sent me the full "Hey girl" message detailing how she would love for some babes to join her beauty business, as she had 3 slots left for the month and thought I would be perfect to work for her, after knowingly or unknowingly sending dirty messages to my boyfriend. I did block her straight away, but it killed me to know that my boyfriend had thrown our relationship away for a boss babe. What do you even say to that? It's been a while now, so I can finally laugh about it, but it just goes to show that as bad as the cults can make good people behave, they don't change the bad bits that are already there from the start. I hope we can all laugh at the audacity of this, and thank you for reading. Bye, hun. I do think it's incredibly entertaining that, like, the girl that your boyfriend was texting secretly on the side ended up being the same girl to try and recruit you into her downline. Again, whether she knew that that was the dynamic or not is kind of irrelevant, I think, because the point still stands that anybody is a target for these MLMs. Maybe she was just clicking through mutual friends one day, or you popped up as like a suggested friend on Facebook and she was like, yeah, young girl my age looks good, click on her, send her a message. It's just so pitiful and desperate. When they're cold messaging people like that, it's blatantly obvious that they don't care about who you are as a person, they just need a warm body to fill that spot. And chances are they're not doing any kind of research on who it is that they're actually extending this offer to. And it sounds like from your social media profiles being pretty locked down, it's not like she could really find much about you to begin with. So how would she know if you're like a good fit for her team or not? That in itself is evidence enough to know that this is just a numbers game. How many cold messages can you spam out to people? The more people you can cold message, the more likely it is that somebody's gonna respond. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what kind of past relationship you've had with them, doesn't matter if that's the girl that was dating the guy you were talking to, or if she even knows that that's who she's messaging because she didn't look into it that deeply. Zeke came to say hello, so sorry if his tail's in the frame. It stings to know that your relationship came to an end because your boyfriend was secretly texting this girl who was in an MLM company, supposedly on the basis of getting her out of said MLM company, and then it stings extra bad because a couple months later she's messaging you to join the MLM, so clearly the convincing to leave didn't work. It's just annoying that his excuse at the time was like, oh, I'm helping her, I'm saving her, I'm gonna get her out of her MLM. Okay, well, you didn't do a good job. A very unfortunate situation, but you know, girl to girl, you dodged a bullet, okay? Good riddance. And I am glad that you can kind of look back on it and laugh now. Thanks for sending in your story. This story, the subject line caught my eye, and it says MLM horror story from an old lady perspective. And it says, hi Hannah, I've been enjoying your MLM horror stories for quite a while. I appreciate the way that you break down the reasons why MLMs are harmful without a lot of drama. You present the facts in an entertaining and informative way that allows and encourages people to make their own informed decisions. Your style is refreshing and also calming. I really enjoy listening to the posts as background noise while I attend to other things in my life. Please don't use my name. As I listed in my subject line, I'm old. How old? I can remember the original Tupperware parties where my mom and the other lady sat in a circle in someone's living room passing around bowls as they were taught how to burp the lids for freshness. I'm sorry, I've never heard of this before. They were taught how to burp the lids for freshness. I'm assuming that means like, you know, press them down and expel the extra air. That is such a gross way to phrase it. Oh my gosh. Because this was a new and innovative process. I remember remember a local woman who was the Avon lady. We saw her every Saturday when I went along with my mother to get her hair done in order to be ready for church on Sunday. The lady, let's call her Lydia, would be perched in the hairdresser's chair like an eagle in a nest, grabbing everyone who came for their appointment to make sure that they saw the newest catalog and placed an order. This was really stressful for my mom because money was tight and just getting her hair set once a week was the only thing that she ever did for herself. Having to run the Avon gauntlet in order to get a little bit of personal care was more than she wanted to deal with. Every 2 months or so, she would find something to buy to just get Lydia to leave her alone. Over the years, our house had multiple perfume and aftershave decanters of various shapes and sizes, all guaranteed to add grace and charm to our space. What I remember the most was that all the decanters still had all the perfumes and aftershave in them, since nobody liked the scents. Other than these interactions, MLMs were really not on my radar at that time, which brings me to the reason for my letter. In my career, I became the director of a child care facility. Since they were parents with young children, many were trying to find ways to increase their income while balancing their family lives. When I saw your MLM Horror Story 95 about the book Just Wait Till We're Diamond, a whole flood of memories came back to me. Not only have I seen this book, I read it. Yeah, so a couple Horror Stories videos ago, a book came to my attention, a children's book written by somebody in Amway. I ordered the book secondhand online and I read through some of it and paraphrased it and showed you some of the illustrations, and it is wild. It's a total brainwashing book for children, essentially to like be okay and be tolerant of your parents being in an MLM. Yeah, they're really busy. Yeah, they're kind of ignoring you. Yeah, they're dragging you along to all their MLM events, but it's okay. Just wait until they're diamond. Just wait until it all pays off for the family one day. The company Amway was never mentioned in the book specifically, but I do believe that the author of the book was in Amway with her husband, and she wrote the book from her daughter's perspective, being the child of parents in an MLM. I think it's one of the favorite segments I've ever done in MLM Horror Stories before. It was very unique. So if you haven't seen episode 95 of the MLM Horror Stories series, you might want to go check that out to give context for this story. One day over 20 years ago, remember I said that I'm old, a little girl came to the facility and her mom told me that she had a special book in her child's book bag and asked if she could share it for show and tell. Maybe I would like to read it to the class. On initial inspection, I didn't see anything offensive or inappropriate about the book, so I read it during circle time. It was only when I was a few pages into it that I realized it was a propaganda publication for an MLM. I finished the book and we carefully put it away to go home. At dismissal, Mom happily asked if we had read it and then shared her newfound zealotry for Amway. She offered to become the facility's supplier for anything that we may need. I declined her offer. Luckily, since the class was made of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, I don't think any of them were influenced by the book and they didn't rush home to beg their families to join Amway and work towards diamond status, but I was so sad for the little girl who was already being brainwashed into the MLM mindset. Very true. This is a children's book that normalizes that experience of being a child with parents heavily involved with an MLM company. In my opinion, not something that should be normalized. And books are a great tool to teach young kids about the world, different experiences. And so when you're a kid and your parent is reading you this book about being a child of Amway, you just inherently adopt that as like, oh, this is what adults do. This is a pathway that I can go down in the future. Kids often like to fantasize or wonder about what they're going to be when they grow up. And this is sort of given to them like an option of something you can pursue. And not only that, it's something that is painted in a very positive light that's going to bring your family a lot of success and happiness and freedom. And it's upsetting because that's not exactly true. It's not true most of the time for most people who join these companies. An extremely small percentage of people do reach that diamond status that they're putting on a pedestal in this children's book. And the narrative is presented in such a way that you can achieve this elite status by just working hard and just staying at it, which is not true. That's not always the case. It has a lot more to do with your luck, your timing, and how many people you can recruit. So it's problematic in that sense that you're kind of brainwashing this child that like, if you just work hard enough, you're going to achieve the life of your dreams through an MLM, and they're too young to understand the nuance of how that's not the true situation. So I do agree. I don't think it's fair to say that the kids in this class hearing this book one time on one day are going to be forever influenced to want to join an MLM or something, but I think it is probably fair to say that that one particular student is under a disproportionate amount of influence that MLMs are good. Over the years, I saw many families who thought that MLMs were the answer to their financial concerns. Every few months, there would be a mother at the door of the daycare trying to hand my staff catalogs for 31 Gifts, Scentsy, Home Interiors, various jewelry companies, etc. Many offered to hold a fundraiser to support the facility, but luckily we had policies in place that forbid our support of any MLMs. That's actually really surprising to me to hear that, especially in a setting of 20 years ago, I would not have expected policies like that to be in place at that time. So that's really reassuring. The reason we gave the families was that if we supported one, we would have to support all of them, and that wasn't going to happen. That does make sense. None of these families stayed with their MLM for very long, as they realized that they were never going to make any money from them. One last story, which to me was the saddest example of how harmful MLMs are. There was one family from the childcare center who was really struggling on how to work things out financially. They had just had their fourth child and needed extra income. Mom was sharing her struggles with me, and after looking into several MLMs, she decided that LuLaRoe would be her solution. For a mere $3,000 investment, she could become a representative and save her family. While I knew nothing about LuLaRoe except that their ugly leggings and other items of clothing were for sale everywhere, anyone who invests thousands of dollars in an MLM in order to make money isn't going to be successful. Her husband wasn't comfortable putting that much money up front, but supported her and believed in the promises that financial success and happiness was just a few months away. I watched as she struggled to handle the merchandise involving her mother and sisters in the business, as she took her inventory to community yard sales, events, and held pop-ups at her own home. She spoke of how their already overcrowded home was now bursting as she tried to set aside room to store and run her business. And instead of having more time with her newborn son and his older sisters, she was away from home more and missing a lot of special events with her family. This only lasted a few months before she and her husband realized that this was not going to help them in any way. The market was flooded with enough buttery soft leggings to dress everyone in town, and the last I heard was that she was almost giving some of her stock away in order to regain space in their home. Sorry that this has been such a long rant. Keep up the good work bringing these businesses to light and providing truth and information to the public. Best wishes to you, your family, and your kitties. Thank you so, so much. And yeah, God, the LuLaRoe era, right? The inventory-based MLMs like LuLaRoe are exceptionally damaging because you are putting up so much money up front and you're acquiring all of this inventory that it's now up to you to sell. If you don't sell it, you don't make any money off of it, which is unlike some MLMs where they just go to a website to place an order and then that person gets a commission for that sale when it happens. There is less financial risk in that kind of a setup than there is in investing $3,000 in a bunch of leggings that you're not going to be able to sell, specifically because of the issue of market oversaturation. Even if there's like 10 to 15 ladies in your small town all selling the same leggings, then there's nobody left to sell to. You know, you're competing for your customer base in a way that you're not necessarily doing with a store that's in an online format where you can sell to anybody in the country. They just go to the website to place their order. And this is not to say that non-inventory based MLMs are a good thing that you should want to get involved in, but I'm saying that they're like the lesser of two evils, right? If you're going to join an MLM, which I do not recommend you do because it's a terrible financial decision, but if you were, I would hope that you would not choose an inventory based MLM like LuLaRoe, like Mary Kay, like Amway. And so it breaks my heart with your story that in this situation of this mom who's just had her fourth baby, money is extra tight and she's looking for a way to make some money. She arguably made probably the worst decision of certain MLMs to join in that scenario, which is really sad. Thankfully, it sounds like she realized within just a few months that like, oh crap, we made a bad decision here, and they decided to remove themselves from it so they don't spend more money. But you know, from the perspective of being the director of a childcare facility, I'd never really thought about it before, but that's totally a breeding ground for MLMs too. And as I'm thinking about that more, I wonder if it's because the dynamic is that your child is in childcare because you have a job outside of the home, right? You got your own thing going on, you got a job, you got a career, you need childcare. You're not providing that childcare. But then there's all this pressure of like, stay home with the kids, be a stay-at-home mom, work from home, be your own boss. So I wonder if in some cases parents have this idea of like, oh, this MLM business opportunity could be my golden ticket to be a stay-at-home mom. I can have like the best of all worlds, right? I get to be home, I get to be making money, I get to not have my kid in childcare, I don't have to pay for that childcare. And so maybe they're taking on this extra like side hustle business opportunity in addition to their full-time job, hoping that something will come of it in the future, that it will be able to take over their full-time income and they will be able to bring their kid home, you know, quote unquote. But when you join an MLM, you look at your warm market, you look at the people closest to you. Who do you see every day? Friends and family, people at your workplace, maybe at church and at your childcare facility. So I do wonder if it's just kind of an extension of that. Like people join these MLMs and then they start to tap into those warm markets, the childcare facility being one of them. And it sounds like you had a lot of run-ins with parents who were joining MLM. So there must be some kind of connection there that I haven't really thought about previously. What I think is the wildest part of your story is that connection with the Amway children's book, the fact that you would actually put your hands on it, you had read it to a class before. That feels like proof to me that at one point there were parents in Amway who had these books in their possession and who were reading them to their children children regularly, and even thought that it was appropriate to go as far as to bringing it to daycare to have read to the other children as well. Like, it's pretty baffling. It's really crazy to think about it like that. Because I think I even said it in the previous video when I read the children's book. I think I made a comment where I was like, this is like a relic of MLM history. Like, the book is not in publication anymore. You can only get it from these secondhand websites. And it almost feels like a collector's item for my anti-MLM collection at this point in time. So I love getting this story from your perspective from 20 years ago, where you were like, yeah, that was a real part of our reality. I actually read that book to some children at the daycare facility. I really enjoyed that part of your story. Thank you so much for sending this in. And with that, that's all the stories I have for you for another episode of MLM Horror Stories. Huge thank you to the writers of these emails for sending in their experiences. Without you, I quite literally could not make this video series, and I think that it is really helpful to continue to get the word out about the negative impact of the MLM industry. 97 episodes of this series and counting. An unimaginable negative impact that these MLM companies have had on people, and this video series is kind of a way to push back on that, to expose that, be like, no, this behavior is not okay. I feel harmed, I feel wronged, and I want to take a stand and share my story so that other people don't have to experience the same thing. And I think that's a beautiful dynamic. So thanks again to the writers of these stories, and in the future, if you have your own MLM horror story you'd like to send in and have considered for a video, check out the description box below for instructions on how to send that to me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.